Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Positive Male Role Model Podcast. Like a top 10 boys' name in the United States in the year 1995, I'm still your host, Austin, and today I want to try a different format to the podcast and see if you guys like it. You're probably wondering why this episode has the letters AR in the title. Well, that's because this episode is a daily double. Pew, 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 pew. Instead of a normal episode, it's going to be called Austin Rants. Every once in a while, I'm going to drop an episode like this. I know I usually give you guys a ton of sources and data and everything, but in this format, I'm basically going to rant for 20 minutes about a topic with very little data, maybe like one study. It's going to be like more of an informal stream of consciousness that you might find interesting. See if I can persuade you to look at something a bit of a different way. The other fun part is that these are my opinions right now, but I might in the future do another Austin rant on the same topic like a year or two down the line if my opinion changes. So that way you can see like that progression over time ideologically. So I know up to this point I've been discussing a series of disconnected ideas in previous episodes, probably sounding like a series of abstract concepts, but today is one of those sessions where I'm going to put everything together. That's because today's topic is adopting a growth-based mindset. So this time I'm going to start off with the study and then riff about it for the rest of the episode. So in 2006, a psychologist named Carol Dweck was doing research on how mindsets influence people's performance at certain tasks. So she did a study with thousands of school-age children. An alarming number of students report being overwhelmed by anxiety and depression to the point that it makes it difficult to function, much less achieve their academic potential, she says. This can lead students to seek desperate solutions such as cheating, but mindset science can play a role in helping to spark students' love of learning again. There are two theories of intelligence in the specific context of this model, referred to simply as mindsets, that students can have about their intellectual abilities. Although no one has purely one or the other, she notes, individuals with more of a fixed mindset believe that their intellectual abilities are simply fixed. They tend to approach learning with the goal of looking smart and often shy away from challenges because they believe that having to work hard at something or making mistakes means that they don't have high ability. Those with more of a growth mindset, on the other hand, believe that abilities can be developed. They are more likely to see effort as something that propels learning and to see setbacks as opportunities to build new skills. A growth mindset means that you thrive on challenge and don't see failure as a way to describe yourself, but as a springboard for growth and developing your abilities. Your intelligence and talents are all susceptible to growth. Dr. Dweck of Stanford first talked about the power of mindset science nearly 30 years ago. Dweck and her team became interested in the attitude of students when it comes to failure. After studying the behavior of students and children, the term growth mindset came about. Simply put, this mindset believes that you believe in your ability to become better through hard work and help from others. This growth mindset is based on the belief that your basic qualities are things that you can cultivate through your efforts. Although people may differ in every which way in their initial talents and aptitudes, interests, or temperaments, everyone can change and grow through application and experience. They understood their abilities could grow through hard work for these people who had a growth-based mindset, but for other children, failure was tragic, catastrophic. Her research mentioned that consistent uplifting praise can make a really big difference on how kids tackle challenges and decide to try to grow instead of collapsing. So, as per usual, this and all the data that I'm talking about is going to be in the podcast notes, but kind of interesting to think about, right? It's like a little positive affirmation game of volleyball a kid can play with someone like their parent or a counselor. Kid takes a bump, the parent gives them the perfect set, and then the kid nails the nastiest spike. Game, set, match. The kid's confidence and grit to weather challenges grows from this experience, and even through initial setbacks, they learn that that's a part of life from a young age. So, what about my own personal experience with the growth-based mindset? Why did I want to talk about this today? Well, kind of a bit of a funny story. So, I never really directly chose to embrace it conceptually. I actually kind of meandered my way into it as a young kid completely by accident and happenstance. When you're dealing with very difficult emotional situations, and it just so happens that the challenge that you face in life is one that you have to do really hard things in order to overcome, while feeling maybe defeated, sad, down, depressed, you name it, that success at something like that at a young age can kind of lead to you maybe realizing, hey, maybe I can get better at this over time. So how does the story relate to me personally? Well, before my dad died, I wasn't always the best student. I was definitely the class clown, big C-type kid. Definitely had teachers being like, yo, this kid is definitely causing a disruption, but probably wouldn't surprise you. But because I lived in an area with notoriously bad schools, my dad saw education as really important. So he put me in a private middle school so I'd have a pipeline to that middle school's really good high school. And that private school that I went to had a decent sized tuition, more than our family could pay without his, help and financial assistance. When my dad died, we didn't have the money for me to keep going there, but the school offered me a merit-based scholarship if I could hit a certain grade point average. If I could just go from being a C student to at least a B plus student, they'd cover a large amount of my tuition and I could stay. So while I lost my dad and was mentally really shaken up, there was a path, a very, very small path, a light at the end of the tunnel, to be able to go where I wanted to go. But the only way for that path to work out was if I did better than I was doing before under even harder circumstances. At the time, it felt pretty overwhelming. I had already lost so much at a young age, I didn't feel like I could afford to lose more, like my friends, people I cared about, and really just that identity of, knowing that this is the school you go to. Obviously, looking back on it, I would have just gone to a public high school after, so life wouldn't have necessarily ended. But you can see how, for a 7th, 8th grader, how this could feel completely life shattering. My way of life, my routine, all my friends, my support system. I had also changed school a lot as a kid, so I was tired of building a community of friends and then just losing them all over again. In some way, that feeling that the odds were really stacked against me just made me so mad. The anxiety and fear began to give way to that anger, and I channeled it into studying. I felt like at that age, I just wasn't enough to be able to succeed. I wasn't smart enough. I wasn't strong enough emotionally. I wasn't hard enough of a worker. I felt I needed to become stronger, smarter, and work harder. Maybe it was a child's need to feel control over a situation that they only nominally felt they had control over, but it felt like in practice that I didn't have control over it. The hardest part was that the challenge that was laid before me was something I felt I could have really used my dad to help me with the most. Not just in the sense that I wouldn't have been in the situation if he was still alive, but both for learning how to cope with the situation and also what to do in response to it. I felt like I was facing a challenge that I needed to be a man to succeed at, but at the same time, without the best person in the world to teach me how. I struggled with depression even at that age, but over time, I started to parse out how I felt. It wasn't that I didn't want to live anymore. It's that I didn't want to live like this. And that is one of the first times I ever really understood at a young age what my emotions meant and what it meant I wanted to do next. I wanted a better life, and I knew I could be happy in a situation where the odds just weren't against me to such a crazy extent. I knew that the only chance I had at things getting better was if I tried. I'm lucky at that age that I didn't give up. Even when I didn't feel like moving, I just kept showing up every day. Tried my best, took more notes. If I felt like I couldn't change things, then in some way I felt like I had nothing to lose. There was something freeing about knowing someone in a situation as adverse as having to perform academically after they lost a parent. It's something that most people don't succeed at. So if that's the case, and I might already lose regardless, I might as well just give it all I got and leave it all on the court. It just so happened, as I discovered later, I actually had a learning disability as a kid that went undiagnosed until later in my life. Without the threat of losing my schooling before my dad passed, I wasn't really motivated to try to put in the work to overcome it, and it played a part in why my grades were low prior. Now, after my dad had passed and everything on the line, with my feet to the fire, and that freedom to accept the chance of failure, by actually trying instead of holding back to cushion the inevitable blow to my sense of self-worth if I didn't succeed academically, for the first time I was actually giving myself the best chance to succeed. Next thing I knew, my grades improved. Without that stifling fear of failure dictating all of my life, that need to be perfect to even be worth trying, I was able to settle in a bit, get some traction. I learned how to find my own personal silence in the noise, and to leave everything I had out there. If you fail, you fail. It doesn't mean I'm not going to leave everything I had on the court so I don't look back and regret not trying. The worst case scenario is going to happen if I do nothing, so I might as well do something if there's a chance it at least ameliorates that situation. And that feeling, that calm in the chaos, the silence in the noise, peace in a crisis, has been something I've taken with me ever since. Now, after I had that experience at that age, the next year in middle school, I became an A minus B plus average student, so I got to keep that scholarship. And I did so for the next 5 years of school until I graduated high school and went off to college. That's been an experience that's given me a lot of confidence and grit and resilience over the course of my life. To have a moment where your soul and identity are tested and asked of you at a young age. I've run into a lot of times where I felt the walls were closing in since, and I remember that silence in the noise. I find that clarity in a crisis. And I can't tell you it's always been pretty. Many times it has gotten quite messy, in fact. But it always turned out okay. There was weeping in the night, but there was joy in the morning. So now, whenever things get really tough, I definitely have my sad days just like everyone else. But I try to keep an eye out, even when the human feelings of pessimism can be at their apex, when hope is at an all-time low. for chances to turn things around, reasons to gain some momentum, get a little of that fire, that spark back. And that's where my identity as a momentum player in any competitive situation I'm in comes in. It takes a lot to knock me down, but it doesn't take much to get me heating up. All I need is one win, no matter how tiny the victory. And next thing you know, I'm on your head. I find most people have trouble playing against people like that. You gotta be that like Nadal type in response, that steady high level of consistency to withstand those hot streaks. Otherwise, you just get blown off the table. There's a confidence that comes from knowing not that you will always win, but that you can handle if you lose. One of the things that my dad used to tell me all the time before he died was this one sentence that always annoyed me. He always used to call me clever when I was really this like smart, hyperactive kid bouncing off the walls and asking questions about everything. He was always really patient to answer all of my questions because he saw that he wasn't just answering to get his kid to be quiet. He saw he was building me up intellectually, refining and helping me hone my skill at reasoning and understanding the world around me. He used to tell me on long car rides on short Sundays that I was really smart, but I lacked one thing. So, as a kid, what are you going to say? I'd always be like, what do you mean I lack one thing? What do I lack? And he'd always look at me and go, you're very smart, very clever, but you lack experience. So a natural kid response to something so amorphous and ambiguous is, what the heck is experience? And how do I get it? And he would just look at me and he'd say, you'll get it. It just takes time as you get older. Well, I'm older now, Pops. I don't get it all. But I got a lot of hard-earned experience through some tough times. And I still have more to get. So from a young age, seeing my life as a growing experience, it might have been a way he prepared me for life that I actually really needed, without either of us realizing how important that would be in the limited amount of time we had left to spend with each other. It even applies to this podcast. When I started this, I accepted I wasn't going to be the GOAT podcaster from day one. I knew I needed time to heat up, figure out what I was doing, getting my Driggle package, getting my bag, figure out how to get this podcast out there by word of mouth among people who like these topics, what I wanted it to look like, the best system to generate new output, how to be creative without it feeling forced, and eventually, one day to get a better audio setup. We're getting there, I promise. Thank you for suffering through this. There's a concept in meditation and mindfulness called beginner's mind, where instead of showing up to a new activity, or even an old one you practiced at a lot, expecting perfection out of yourself, you just take yourself wherever you are as you show up on that specific day. So if today's a day where you're performing at a level below what you're used to performing at, you accept that as it is, instead of getting mad at yourself. You just do the best you can do on that one day. The day itself might still be a struggle, you might still feel lame feelings, but if you can just keep going and somehow function well, even when there are many things getting in the way of that functioning, you can survive till another, better day. Things can change. Not holding yourself to rigid expectations of perfection. Just like March Madness instead. Survive in advance, baby. Survive in advance. I think a lot of people in life tend to get hit by a big, not great thing that happens. And they internalize from that things can't and won't get better. And that's how learned helplessness seeps in at a young age. And it's dangerous if it's a foundational Lego block in which the Lego tower that is your identity is constructed with. Life isn't and hasn't always been a growth experience for them. It's an endless series of feeling like their inadequacy is being proven time and time again in new challenges. And that's why it's hard to commit to self-improvement or self-actualization or to appreciate the good things in life. Because why enjoy the ups of life when it's just going to go down again because of something intrinsically wrong about you, instead of it just being part of life? But as much as life can keep you down, there's a little secret about mindset. Your mindset isn't unchangeable. In those studies, Dweck found that adults could influence the mindsets children had towards their challenges. Positive human intervention, someone they trusted saying uplifting things to them, hands-on coaching. All these things are found to influence what mindset the children adopted and could change a fixed mindset to a growth mindset. So instead of a growth mindset and the optimism associated with it just being seen as a coping mechanism, if you're not using it, you're kind of just leaving points on the table you could have gained. Pessimistically writing off adopting a growth mindset could be stopping you from reaching your full potential. Personally, I think this is one of the coolest things about life. You can feel like you've been losing for days, weeks, months, years. You may have had a fixed mindset all of your life, that this is just your lot in life. All your insecurities are true, things will never get better, this is just who you are, a loser. But if you adopt a growth mindset, all you need is one win, just one. And that can be the first day of the rest of your new life. That can be the beginning of new momentum and to see that you're gaining traction and growing through adversity. All you have to do is survive and advance until that win comes. I tell my friends all the time, Even if I've been ice cold for a while, even if I've struck out for months, all I need is one good pitch, and I will take that ball to the yard. Woo! And that's one of my favorite things about myself. As quick and suddenly as I can go cold, it's just as quick and suddenly as I can get hot again. So yeah, thanks for listening, everybody. Thanks for listening to the inaugural episode of Austin Rants, the podcast topic. Super excited for new episodes. As you can see, I'm getting into that 1 week upload cadence. So I still got to figure out what to make next week's topic about, but I'm excited to share it. As always, ding the bell, subscribe for more notifications if you like this, although it's on Spotify, not YouTube, so I don't know if that joke really applies. But all my good friends know I've been making this joke for years before I ever became a podcaster. So, if you want to get a premium subscription, just let me know. Hit me up. Anyway, thanks everybody. See y'all next time. Peace.